The watch was wrapped in tissue paper that had yellowed at the edges, and the box itself was older than my son. I'd kept it in the top drawer of my dresser for 38 years, under a stack of folded silk scarves I never wore. My father gave it to me 3 weeks before he died. He pressed it into my palm at the kitchen table in our old house in Allentown, and he said, "Give this to a man who knows what it's worth, Junie. Not what it costs. What it's worth." I was 29 then. I'm 67 now. And on a Saturday in May, at the engagement party of my only son, I finally gave it away. My name is Juniper, but everybody who matters calls me June. I've worked as a night janitor at Mercy General Hospital for 26 years. I clock in at 10, I mop the third-floor corridor by midnight, and I'm home before the paper hits the porch. That's what people see when they look at me. A woman in soft-soled shoes with knuckles that ache when it rains. A woman who orders the soup at the diner because it's $2 cheaper than the sandwich. What they don't see is the rest of it. My father built a small chain of independent pharmacies in eastern Pennsylvania starting in 1958. By the time he passed, there were 19 of them. I never wanted them. I wanted to be a nurse. I went to nursing school. I dropped out when my mother got sick, and I never went back. But I kept the pharmacies, and I hired a man named Mr. Butt, Devlin, to run them. And over 30-some years, I bought out 2 competitors, and we became a quiet, middle-sized regional company. 43 locations. The accountant who sends me my quarterly statements puts my net worth somewhere just north of $31 million. I have never told anyone except my lawyer and the man who does my taxes. Not my son. Not the women I have coffee with on Sundays. Not even my late husband, God rest him, who passed thinking we were just getting by. I lived this way on purpose. My father grew up sleeping 4 to a bed in a tenement in Scranton. He told me once that money was a quiet thing, and the louder it got, the less of it you actually had. I believed him then, and I believe him now. I bought a small brick house in a working-class neighborhood in Bethlehem in 1981, and I paid it off in 1996. The roof leaks sometimes. I patch it. My son's name is Beauregard, but he goes by Beau. He's 34. He works in commercial real estate in Philadelphia, and he does fine for himself, though not as fine as he pretends. About a year and a half ago, he met a woman named Marigold Whitcomb Ashe at some charity gala his firm sponsored, and from the first dinner I had with the 2 of them, I knew. I knew the way a mother knows when a child is lying about a fever to skip school. She wasn't unkind to me at that first dinner. She was worse than unkind. She was polite the way you're polite to a waiter. The Whitcomb Ashes are old money in the mainline sense, or at least they present themselves that way. Her father, Hollis Whitcomb Ashe, owns what I came to understand was a chain of high-end dry cleaning and garment care services that cater to the country club set. Her mother sat on 3 or 4 foundation boards and wore her hair in the kind of bob that costs $400 to maintain. They had a house in Gladwin with white columns. I went there once, the prior Thanksgiving, when Beau insisted I come. Marigold's mother, whose name was Beatrix, took my coat at the door, looked at the lining of it for a beat too long, and asked if I'd like to freshen up before sitting down. I said, "No, thank you. I freshened up at home." She gave me a small, tight smile. The engagement party was set for the second Saturday in May at a restaurant called the Heron Room in Bryn Mawr. Marigold and her mother planned it. I was told the dress code was garden formal, and when I asked what that meant, Marigold laughed on the phone and said, "Oh, Juniper, you'll figure something out. I'm sure you have something lovely." I wore the navy dress I'd worn to my husband's brother's funeral 6 years before. It still fit. I had it cleaned at a place on Linden Street that charged me $11. I brought the watch in its old box wrapped in a piece of brown paper tied with kitchen twine. I didn't have ribbon. I didn't think to buy any. The Heron Room had a courtyard out back with strings of soft yellow bulbs over a flagstone patio. There were maybe 60 people there when I arrived, all of them holding flutes of something pale, and I didn't recognize one face out of 10. Beau came to greet me at the door and kissed my cheek, and I could smell the wine on him already, and he said, "Mom, you came." like he was surprised, like we hadn't spoken on the phone 2 nights before. Marigold floated over in a pale green dress that probably cost more than my car. She air-kissed both my cheeks and said, "Juniper, so glad, just so glad." Her eyes scanned past me to the door behind me, looking for whoever was more interesting next. I waited. I am good at waiting. 26 years of waiting for a buffer to finish, for a floor to dry, for a doctor to finish notes so I can empty his wastebasket. I have made an art form of standing still. Around 8 o'clock, Beatrix tapped a fork against a glass and made a little speech about her precious daughter and the fine young man she'd chosen. Hollis followed with a few words about family legacy. Then it was time for the gifts. I hadn't expected gifts at an engagement party. I thought that was a shower thing. But there was a small mahogany table set up by the bar, stacked with packages from Tiffany boxes to those handled bags with the silk ribbons, and Marigold sat in a velvet armchair like she was holding court, and one by one she opened them in front of everybody. A set of Baccarat champagne flutes, a monogrammed cashmere throw, a weekend at someone's ski lodge in Stowe in an envelope, a pair of silver candlesticks that an aunt of hers had brought from Lyon. People oohed. People clapped. Marigold did the gracious bride thing. I had set my brown paper package on the table when I came in. I watched her pick it up last. She looked at it the way you look at a piece of meat you suspect has turned. She held it up between 2 fingers. "And this one," she said in a voice that carried, "is from Juniper, Beau's mother." There was a small pocket of laughter that I couldn't place the source of. Beatrix said, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" Marigold untied the twine with exaggerated care, like she was disarming something. She lifted the box out and frowned at the worn green velvet. She popped the clasp. She lifted out the watch. It was a gold Patek Philippe, a Calatrava, from 1962. My father bought it new from a dealer in Philadelphia when he turned 40. He wore it for 30 years. It hadn't been wound in decades, but the case was perfect. The leather strap I'd replaced in 1989, and the certificate of authenticity along with my father's original receipt were folded in the lining of the box. Marigold held it up by the strap and let it dangle. "An old watch," she said. "From, what, the 60s? It doesn't even tick." The laughter that time was louder. I felt it like cold water down my back. "Mom," Beau said. He'd come up beside me. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at me. He was looking at Marigold, half laughing, the way you laugh when you want to be in on the joke. "Did you wind it? You probably just need to wind it." "Beau, sweetheart," Marigold said, drawing it out, "next time your mother comes to one of our events, can we maybe just have her bring a casserole? Like a green bean thing? That would be lovely, wouldn't it?" The laughter again. Louder. I looked at my son, my boy, the boy who had eaten cereal at my kitchen table in his socks for 18 years, the boy whose forehead I had pressed my lips to 1,000 times when he was sick, the boy whose father I had buried alone because his father died on a Tuesday afternoon while Beau was at college and couldn't come home in time. He looked at the watch in Marigold's hand. He looked at me. He gave me the smallest shrug of his shoulders, a little half smile. Like, "What can you do, Mom? Like, you should have known better." "It's fine, Mom," he said. "It's the thought. Maybe next time, if you can't bring something nice, just bring a dish." I felt something in my chest go very still. I walked to the mahogany table. I picked up the box. I took the watch out of Marigold's hand. She didn't resist. She was already turning to her mother to roll her eyes. I put the watch back in the box. I closed the clasp. I tucked the box under my arm. "Beau," I said quietly, "take care of yourself." I walked out of the courtyard, through the dining room of the Heron Room, past a hostess who tried to ask if I needed anything, out the front door, and to my 2011 Honda Civic in the gravel lot. I drove home with the watch on the passenger seat. I did not cry. I have never cried in a moving vehicle. My father taught me that. He said tears belong at home where you can wash your face after. I sat at my kitchen table at 1 in the morning with the watch in front of me and a cup of tea I'd let go cold. I looked at the brass clasp of the box and I thought about my father's hands. Big, knuckled hands. Pharmacist's hands. The hands of a man who had counted out pills 6 days a week for 51 years and never once cheated a customer on a dosage. I picked up the phone Monday morning at 8:30 and I called Mr. Devlin. "June," he said. He always sounded delighted to hear from me, even after 26 years. "What can I do for you?" "Arthur," I said, "I want to start moving everything, not all at once. But the LLC, the holdings, the trust, I want to start the conversation, and I want to call Patrick at Hennessy and Loeb today if he has time." There was a pause on the line. "Are you all right, June?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'm just tired of being invisible. Get me Patrick." Patrick Hennessy had been my lawyer for 16 years. He was a thin, sad-eyed man in his 50s with a wife who collected porcelain birds. He called me back at 1 o'clock. I told him I wanted to update my will, restructure the trust I had set up for Beau in 2008, and run a quiet review of my son's financial entanglements with the Whitcomb-Asha family. Patrick asked me to repeat that last part. "They're getting married in October," I said. "I want to know what I'm walking into, or what he is. I want to know what his name is attached to." "That's not exactly standard practice, June." "Patrick," I said, "I'm not asking you to wiretap anybody. I'm asking you to look at public records, tax filings, business registrations, anything that has my son's signature on it." He sighed. He said he'd see what he could do. I went to work that night and I mopped the 3rd floor and I emptied the wastebasket of a doctor who left his coffee cup on his desk every single shift. At 3 in the morning, in the quiet of the linen closet, I sat down on an overturned bucket and I wound the watch. It started ticking on the 3rd turn of the crown. The 2nd hand moved. I held it against my ear and I listened. Patrick called me back 11 days later. "June," he said, "can you come to the office?" I sat across from him at his desk that Friday afternoon. He had a yellow legal pad in front of him, covered in his small, precise handwriting. "Your son," he said, "is listed as a co-signer on 2 business loans taken out in the name of Whitcomb Garment Services, LLC, dated this past January and March. He's also listed as a partial guarantor on a commercial real estate lease in King of Prussia that was signed 3 weeks ago. None of these documents show that he received any compensation or equity in return." I felt the back of my neck go cold. "That's not the worst of it," Patrick said. "Tell me." "Whitcomb Garment Services is being looked at. There's an open inquiry. I have a friend at the State Attorney General's office who let me know, as a professional courtesy, that there have been complaints filed by former employees about, payroll irregularities, and a separate question about whether several of their dry cleaning storefronts are doing what they say they're doing on the books versus what's actually moving through them." Is my son a target? Right now? No, he's a co-signer and a guarantor on debt. But if those entities collapse or are found to have been used for something other than what they claim, his name is on the paper. He could be on the hook for the debt. And if there's a fraud question, he becomes someone the state will want to talk to. I closed my eyes. "How did he sign those?" I said. "Why would he sign those?" Patrick was kind. He didn't say what we both knew. He said sometimes people sign things to make somebody happy, or because they think they're being trusted with something, or because they don't read. I drove home and I sat in the driveway for a long time. I thought about calling Beau. I didn't. I went inside, I put a chicken in the oven, and I called Arthur Devlin and told him to keep moving the restructure forward. I did not call my son. He didn't call me either. 3 weeks after the party, Marigold called me. I let it go to voicemail. She said, "Juniper, hi, it's Marigold. We should really sit down. We got off on the wrong foot at the party. I was so stressed. Can we have lunch?" The voice was sweet as cold cream. I deleted the message. In the middle of June, Beau finally called. "Mom," he said. His voice was thin. I need to talk to you about something. I think I'm in a thing. Come for Sunday dinner," I said. "I'll make pot roast." He came at 4. He sat at my kitchen table the way he had sat at it when he was 11 years old and had broken a window with a baseball, shoulders hunched, hands flat on the wood. I put a plate of meat and potatoes in front of him. He didn't touch it. Marigold's dad asked me to sign some stuff, he said, back in January, and then again in March. He said it was just family stuff, just to keep things in the family circle, that this was how rich people moved money around and I needed to learn. And I felt, I don't know, Mom, I felt like I was being let in, like he was bringing me into something. Marigold said it was a sign that they trusted me, that I was one of them now. What did you sign, Beau? Loan papers. A lease. Some kind of LLC thing in March. I didn't read all of it, Mom. There was a stack of it, and they had a guy there from their lawyer's office, and he just kept saying initial here, B. There's people asking questions now, from the state. They came to the house in Gladwin on Wednesday. Hollis told me not to worry, but Marigold's been weird with me, crying one minute and snapping the next, and I started looking at the papers I have copies of, and Mom, I think he couldn't finish the sentence. He put his head in his hands. My grown son, 34 years old, with his face in his hands at my kitchen table. I sat down across from him. I let him sit there for a long minute. Have you eaten anything today? I asked. No. Eat the potatoes. He picked up the fork. He ate the potatoes. I watched him. When he was done, I went to my bedroom and I came back with a manila folder. I set it on the table between us. Beau, I said, I want you to listen to me without interrupting. Can you do that? He nodded. Your grandfather built a pharmacy business. You knew that. What you didn't know is that I never sold it. It's 43 stores now. It runs out of an office in King of Prussia under a name you wouldn't recognize because I made sure you wouldn't. The man who runs it day to day, Arthur Devlin, has been doing that for 26 years. I get a quarterly statement. The company is worth, on the books, about $31 million. I am, by every legal definition, a wealthy woman. I have been since I was 41 years old. He didn't say anything. His eyes had gone very wide. I never told you, I said, because my father told me that money is a quiet thing, and the people who deserve to know are the people who love you when they think you don't have any. I wanted to know who loved me when I came to dinner in a coat that was 12 years old. I wanted to know who you would marry when you thought you'd be marrying into something better than what you had. I got my answer at the Heron Room. Mom, I'm not finished. The watch I gave you, the one your fiancé called junk, was a Patek Philippe Calatrava. Your grandfather wore it for 30 years. It's worth, depending on the day and the auction house, between $60,000 and $85,000. The paperwork that establishes its authenticity is in the lining of the box, but the watch is not what matters. The watch is a watch. My father gave it to me 3 weeks before he died, and he said, "Give this to a man who knows what it's worth, Beauregard. Not what it costs, what it's worth." I gave it to my son. My son shrugged. He was crying. Quietly, the way men cry when they're trying not to. I have spent the last 11 days, I said, with my lawyer. He has gone through every piece of paper that has your name on it from the Whitcomb ashes. You are a co-signer on 2 business loans and a guarantor on a commercial lease. You received no compensation. You received no equity. You are exposed personally, financially, and potentially criminally, depending on what shakes out of the inquiry that the State Attorney General's office has open on Whitcomb Garment Services. I knew this before you walked in tonight. He put his face back in his hands. You have 2 jobs starting tomorrow morning, I said. The first is to call Patrick Hennessy at the number on this card and walk into his office Monday at 9. He will start the process of trying to extract you from those documents. It is not going to be quick, and it is not going to be free. The second is to decide, between now and Monday morning, who you are marrying. Because if you marry that woman in October, you are tying yourself to that family's exposure for the rest of your life, and there isn't a lawyer in Philadelphia who can unwind that for you once you sign the license. "Mom," he said. His voice was very small. "Are you going to help me?" I looked at him. "My boy?" "Beau," I said. "I love you. I have loved you since you were the size of a kidney bean. I will love you when I am dead and in the ground, but I am not going to write you a check. I am not going to write you a check. I am not going to pay off your name. I am going to pay for Patrick to do what Patrick does because Patrick is mine and you are mine. After that, you are going to earn the rest. You are going to come work at one of the stores, not as a vice president, as a stock clerk in the King of Prussia location where Arthur can keep an eye on you. You will be paid $18 an hour. You will work 40 hours a week. You will keep the apartment you have. You will sell the car you cannot afford. And in 5 years, if you have shown me that you understand what your grandfather understood, we will have a different conversation. And Marigold, that's not my decision, son, but I think you already know." He sat at my table until almost midnight. I made him tea. We didn't talk much. Before he left, he asked if he could see the watch. I went and got it. I set the box on the table between us. He didn't open it. He just put his hand flat on top of it for a long moment. "It's beautiful, Mom," he said. "I know." The next Monday, he was at Patrick's office at 9. The Wednesday after that, he called Marigold and broke off the engagement. I heard later, through a circuitous route, that she screamed at him for 45 minutes and that her mother called him twice that same evening to inform him that he had thrown away the best opportunity of his life. He told both of them calmly that he was returning the ring and that he would not be a party to anything that bore his signature going forward. He wrote a letter to the State Attorney General's office through Patrick, offering his full cooperation. He kept his apartment. He sold the BMW he bought 18 months earlier, and he drove a used Toyota. In August, he started his first shift at the King of Prussia store. He wore khakis and a name tag that said Beau. Arthur put him on the overnight stocking team because that was where the openings were. The first week he came home with blisters on his hands and a sore back. He sent me a picture of his time card with the message, 38 hours, earned everyone. The Whitcomb Garment Services thing unraveled the way these things do, slowly and then all at once. Hollis Whitcomb Ashey was indicted in October on charges of wire fraud and money laundering. The dry cleaners had been moving cash for 2 clients I won't name here. The Gladwin house went on the market in February. Marigold moved to Charleston. Beatrix kept her membership at the country club somehow. Beau worked his way from overnight stocking to day floor in 11 months. He asked Arthur for permission to take a pharmacy technician certification course. Arthur said yes. Beau paid for it himself. A neighbor of mine, a woman named Pat, who has lived 3 doors down for 24 years, came over for coffee one Saturday last fall and asked me why I never moved into a nicer place now that the kids were grown. I poured her another cup and I told her what my father told me. I told her money was a quiet thing. She looked around my little kitchen. At the cabinets, I refaced myself in 2003. At the linoleum, I should have replaced 10 years ago. At the watch box, which I'd set on the windowsill above the sink, because I liked the look of it there in the morning light. "June," she said, "is that real silver?" "It's gold, actually," I said. "It belonged to my father." "It's lovely." "It is. The watch is back in my dresser now. I'll give it to Beau on his 40th birthday if he's earned it. I think he will have. He's been quiet lately in a way I recognize. He's been listening to himself instead of to other people. He started seeing a woman in the spring, a physical therapist from Allentown named Rosal, and she came to Sunday dinner 3 weeks ago. She brought a pie. She'd made it herself. She wore a green cardigan that looked like it had been washed 100 times, and she laughed at one of my husband's old jokes that Beau told, the one about the priest and the duck. And I watched her listen to my son the way you listen to someone you intend to know for a long time. After dinner, while Beau was washing dishes, Roselle helped me carry the leftover roast to the refrigerator. She paused at the windowsill and looked at the velvet box, which I'd moved back up there because I'd been winding the watch every Sunday morning, the way my father did. "Is that a Patek?" she asked. "Just like that." Quiet. Not impressed. Just curious. "It is," I said. She nodded. She didn't ask another question. She just smiled and carried the platter to the fridge. I stood in my kitchen and I listened to my son humming over the sink, the same boy who had eaten cereal in his socks. The same boy who had shrugged at me in a courtyard a year and a half ago. A different man, almost, now. Almost, now. Almost. I thought about my father's hands, pharmacist's hands, the hands of a man who counted things out one at a time. I thought about all the years I had stood in hospital corridors at 1 a.m, pushing a mop, and how it had felt, sometimes like nobody on earth could see me. And I thought about how that had been, in the end, the most useful gift my father ever gave me, the gift of being unseen long enough to see clearly. I have not been to a country club. I have not been to Stowe. I do not own a cashmere throw. I have a 43-store pharmacy chain, a 2011 Honda Civic, a leak in the upstairs bathroom, and a son who calls me twice a week and means it. I have a watch that ticks. I have a father's voice in my head. That, it turns out, has always been enough. I have thought a great deal. In the year and a half since I walked out of the heron room with that velvet box under my arm, about how a moment like that one is made. It is never made in the moment. That is the thing nobody tells you. The shrug my son gave me in that courtyard was 34 years in the making. Every time I let something slide because he was tired, every time I told myself a boy who lost his father at 21 was allowed to be a little selfish for a while, every time I picked up the check at dinner and told him to put his wallet away, I had loved him into believing that love was a current that ran one way. And then one Saturday in May, he stood next to a woman in a green dress and let her hold up the only thing my father had ever given me and call it junk. And he shrugged, because somewhere along the line he had stopped seeing me. What I learned is that what we tolerate, we teach. I had taught my son by my silence and my softness that I would always be there and that there was no cost to taking me lightly. The Whitcomb ashes did not corrupt my son. They simply asked of him what his mother had never required, which was to choose. And when the choice came, he chose the louder room. The watch did not save my son. My lawyer did not save my son. I did not save my son. He saved himself, slowly, over an 11-month stretch of overnight shifts and blistered hands, because for the first time in his life there was a price tag on what came easy and a reward only on what came hard. That is the part that I cannot take credit for and would not if I could. A grown man's character is not handed to him. It is forged in the small hours when nobody is watching and there is no applause coming. If there is a thing I would say to the woman I was at 30, holding my newborn son in a hospital room in Allentown, it would be this: do not confuse kindness with cushioning. A child who is never allowed to feel the edges of the world will mistake the world for a soft place, and the world will correct him later, and the correction will be brutal. Better the small bruises early. Better the no when he is 6 than the catastrophe when he is 34. I am 67 years old. I still mop the 3rd floor of Mercy General on Tuesday and Thursday nights because the work makes me honest with myself and because the woman I am at 4 a.m. with a bucket and a mop is the woman my father raised me to be. My son calls me twice a week. He means it. The watch ticks on my dresser. I wind it on Sundays. And what I know now that I did not know then is that the quietest things in a life are usually the ones holding it up.